right. Hi, this is me. You see me up here, so you don't have to look at my picture. I have a lot of experience in education. I teach in universities and executive education programs, master's programs, undergraduate programs. I have 3 kids, one who's in high school, the other one's about to go into junior high, the third one's in elementary school, so I have a lot to say about education. I have a lot on my chest to say about it, but I'm not going to go into all the issues with education right now. What I am going to do is I'm going to bring in some of the expertise of the organization that I work with called SIT, Systematic Inventive Thinking. We're an innovation company headquartered in Tel Aviv, and we work globally to help organizations and people within the organizations become more innovative, think more creatively. We're a group of 65 people. We work around the world, 72 countries to date, almost 1,500 organizations across the entire spectrum of types of sectors that you can possibly imagine, and we teach in universities. So when the conference told me that the title of my talk is going to be Education, Design, and Creativity, I started to think to myself, should I talk about all 3 of these? Is it actually possible within 15 minutes to talk enough in depth about education and design and creativity? So that's probably what wasn't the intention of the organizers of the conference. So I started to think what could be interesting perhaps to talk about it within this category. I said, maybe instead of education, design, and creativity, all 3 of them, we can talk about education, design, and creativity. The importance of creativity in the design of education. And that's an area where we've had a lot of experience of working to help design corporate innovation programs, redesign learning processes in universities and in schools, elementary schools, applying creativity to find better ways to educate people. But there's another way to interpret this. We can also talk about educating ourselves around design and creativity. And that's basically what I ended up with. I think that for the next 12 or 13 minutes or so, we'll talk about the importance of educating ourselves, not educating others, like we're talking about in this track, but educating ourselves on design and creativity. I thought that this would be a good idea for this particular conference and this particular group for 2 reasons. One, because we're in San Francisco. San Francisco being the hub of the world of design, with the D School over at Stanford, D School spinning off a very famous innovation firm called IDEO. Anyone familiar with IDEO? Okay. IDEO actually developed what's called design thinking, which is a process that has become synonymous with innovation. And so I think that gives us an opportunity to talk about design and creativity. However, maybe with a slight spin, because this is a lab talk, I want to talk about the experiments and the studies around design and creativity. What really does the data show about the interplay between design and creativity? What really helps us arrive at innovative solutions, successful innovations? Is it design? Is it creativity? Is it the interaction between them? And so that's what we're going to talk about in the next little while that we have together. The interplay between design and creativity, and what do the facts, what does the data tell us about it? Raise your hand if you're familiar with the 9 dots puzzle. Okay. Studies show that about 50% of the population in the US at least is familiar with this puzzle. There was a very famous experiment. It's actually a puzzle for hundreds of years already. But there was an experiment done by J.P. Guilford. Anyone a psychologist here like me? No? J.P. Guilford is oftentimes coined the father of American psychology. He ran a study to see how many people could solve this riddle. The puzzle is as follows. Here are 9 dots arranged in this way. Your task is to connect all these 9 dots by drawing just 4 lines with your pencil, without lifting your pencil off of the paper. If any of you have pieces of paper, you can try it now. What he finds is that it's very difficult to solve this puzzle. In fact, only 20% of the population is able to solve this puzzle. The solution, or the most common solution, although that there are several, the most common solution is as follows. Or not. We have to start at one corner, work our way down, go beyond the border of these dots, and come across. That's one of the more difficult solutions. It's very difficult to imagine it, and only 20% of the population can do so. Guilford coined a term that I think that everybody in this audience is familiar with, based on the results of this puzzle. Familiar with the term? Thinking outside the box. Right. In order to find creative solutions, solutions that not many people can figure out, you have to think outside the box. That was his claim. Now, makes sense. Because he was the father of American psychology, whatever he said goes. People picked up on it. He had large media following. He didn't have Twitter at the time, but he had a large following. He had access to the media that was at the time. And so he started publishing the fact that the relation to be able to solve creatively problems that are very tough requires an ability to think outside the box. It's a very interesting study, especially in the light that there were two other studies conducted. One by Burnham and Davis 2 years before his, and one by Alba and Weisberg 3 years after his. Burnham and Davis conducted exactly the same study that Guilford did, but they did it in a more scientific way, the way that we know you're supposed to do experiments. They had two groups. One group was just like Guilford's group, asking you to connect all 9 dots using just 4 straight lines or 4 lines with your pencil without lifting it off the paper. And what they found was that 20% of the population was able to do so. Only 20%. The second group, the experimental group, were given similar instructions with a slight twist. They said, in order to solve this puzzle, you need to draw with your pencil 4 straight lines without lifting it off the paper, but you have to go beyond the border of the imaginary square that's being formed by these 9 dots. In that group, what percentage of people were able to solve it? Let's hear numbers. 80, 50, 90. Sounds like that should be the case, right? Both Burnham and Davis and Alba and Weisberg found that 25% of the population is able to solve that, given the hint. They're told that the solution is to go outside the box, and they still can't solve it. 75% of the population can still not solve this puzzle, which just goes ahead to show us that just telling people to think outside the box, if you've ever had that experience or if you've ever been told to think outside the box, it's not very helpful. It's not a helpful clue to help us think outside the box. And so all the methodologies that are built on telling people, think broadly, think outside the box, without giving them much clearer directions of what actually to think about, is not really going to help us with creativity. Let's talk about another data point, something that we have to educate ourselves about when we think about design and creativity. What's the best predictor of new product success? It was a study, several studies on this topic, and they looked into the success versus failure ratio for innovative products where the idea was generated through one of these 6 sources. We have solution spotting, need spotting, mental inventions, trend following, marketing research, and random events. What do we mean by these? You could probably imagine mental inventions are somebody just waking up in the morning saying, I have a great idea. There's market research, which we're all dependent on. There's need spotting. Let's investigate what are the needs out there and create a solution for them. There's solution spotting. We have resources. Let's figure out what problems they can solve. All these different ways that we can come up with ideas. Think to yourselves, which ones will produce the best success-failure ratios? What do you think? What does common wisdom tell us? What is the world telling us today? Need spotting, right? The world is telling us, look for a need. Once you find it, you'll create a solution that's going to be successful, or at least we'll have a good chance of being successful, right? When we talk about design thinking that came out of the D School that was proposed and pushed by IDEO, that's what they say. Let's put in a lot of effort in ethnography, understanding what are the real needs in the market, what's the insights, and then we'll create a solution, and then we'll have good success in the solution. The research shows that these are the success-failure ratios for innovative products. This was a study done on 197 products. 111 of them were successes, 86 failures, and these were the results. Trend following, which is a big area, makes a lot of money nowadays, is a huge failure. There are 3 times more failures of products that were developed based on trends than there are successes. Need spotting, it's okay. But look at random events. Random events means that somebody's doing research on something unexpected happens in that research, and then they say, wait, that could help me solve a problem. They had the wherewithal in order to understand that they were working on something, but they were able to pivot and say, this could really help with something else, completely different. Solution spotting. I have these resources. I can figure out maybe new things I can do with them, and now I want to match them to needs that may or may not be out there. I might be creating needs. I might be tapping into latent needs that I would normally not be able to uncover. Those are the elements that really lead to innovative success, that lead to what we want to accomplish in society. So if that's the case, and it's not about finding needs and then creating the solutions, but around understanding the solutions and then finding the needs that it answers, how do we do that? So let's understand why it's so hard to spot these innovative solutions, why need spotting is so difficult. And in order to do that, I see that you have your cell phones. A lot of you have your cell phones out already. So we're going to do an experiment. Please stand up with your cell phones. Just find somebody so that you're in pairs. We're going to do an experiment now. One of you, whoever is holding the cell phone, put it on a stopwatch. Okay? Put it on a stopwatch. And we're going to have a competition. The competition is as follows. Are you on stopwatch? Okay, great. We're going to have a competition. The person who's holding the phone is going to time the other person. The person who's not holding the phone, I'm going to count till 3 and then give you the task. You're going to say as fast as possible, as fast as you can, in whatever language you feel most comfortable with, English, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever. As fast as you can, say the names of the months of the year in order. Go. Okay? We're good? We're all done? All right, I gave you about 4 seconds. We're all done in 4 seconds. Now, hand over your stopwatch to your partner. We're going to have a second round. We're going to see who's going to win. Okay? You're going to have the same task with a slight twist. Your job is now to say the names of the month in order, again, whichever language you feel most comfortable with, but in alphabetical order, not in chronological order. Go. Okay, it's more than 4 seconds, that's for sure. All right, I think we made the point. You'd be able to do it. If I gave you about 6 minutes, everyone would have accomplished it. We don't have that time. I got the 3-minute warning already. But what happened here? Why is it so difficult for us to perform the second task? By the way, you're probably curious, so here's the answer. Otherwise, I can't continue. You'll all be wondering. Why is it so difficult to accomplish this task? There's a phenomenon, and this is research. The phenomenon is called fixedness, cognitive fixedness. We perceive a situation in a certain way. We've learned it. We've been educated on it in a certain way, and we've grown expertise in that field. Our expertise in the months of the year is naming them in the order of the time, chronological order. We also have expertise in doing things in alphabetical order, but not months of the year. We're good at alphabetical order, we're good at months in chronological order, but when we try to mix them, we get very confused. It's because our fixedness, it doesn't jive, it doesn't mix. We can't break our chronological fixedness on this task in order to tap into a different field of expertise. And that's why it's so hard for us to spot solutions with resources we have. We're familiar with these resources, but we're familiar with them in a specific order or for specific functions. And with this, I'm going to end. I'm going to show you one last experiment about this fixedness, and then it's time, okay? The experiment is as follows. It's Dunker's experiment. He's an Austrian psychologist, and he coined the term fixedness. You type it into Microsoft Word, it won't accept it. You try to change it to fixation, but it's a real word. It's a word in psychology. He coined this term. He took a group of students and brought them, well, it was in Austria, so he had a lot of log cabins to choose from. He brought them into a log cabin which had 0 furniture. The floor was made of wood, the walls were made of wood, the roof, everything was made of wood, and he gave them a task. He said, here, the only thing you have in the cabin are these resources. You have a candle, you have thumbtacks, and you have a matchbox with matches inside. That's what you have. Your task is to light the match, is to light the candle, keep it burning at shoulder height in the cabin for 20 minutes after you've left the cabin. Find a way to get that to happen without burning it down. And the students could not figure it out. Less than 20% of the students were able to solve this. So he brought in the other group. You have your control group and you have your experimental group. He brought in the other group. The other group, he gave them exactly the same instructions in exactly the same situation, but he showed them the resources like this. He said, you have your candle, you have your matches, matchbox, and your thumbtacks. Now, find a solution for getting the candle to burn for 20 minutes after you've left the cabin. In this group, 80% of his students were able to find the solution. By now, you've probably thought of it, but because we're out of time, I won't ask you for it. This is what he was looking for. You use the matchbox as a ledge in order to hold the match, and that way, in order to hold the candle so it was far enough away from the wall to not burn anything down. That's what he was looking for. In the first group, less than 20%. In the second group, more than 80%. Why? Because he presented the information, the same resources, in a way that people could perceive, that the students could perceive, that there are more resources in group 2. You have 4 resources, not just 3. Usually we have resources, and we think we're very limited. We're very constrained with our resources, and we always complain. If we only had more resources, we could do a lot more. Creativity, the point of creativity, and in order to create successful solutions, products, innovations, whatever you're looking to do, is to overcome the urge to say, I need more resources, and start figuring out how you can use the same resources and not overlook additional uses that you can have for resources. And that's how you go about spotting solutions with resources you have, rather than looking for needs and then trying who knows how to create solutions. Thank you.